Welcome to the Tankard Show on the Impact Network. I tell you, I am excited today because I get an opportunity to teach one of my favorite subjects, okay? It's what I'm called to do. I have a mandate on my life for it. I am clear that this is an assignment for me. And I want to talk to you about the old and new rules of money. And I'm super pumped because I travel literally all over the country teaching people this with the Millionaires Club that I started. You don't have to be a millionaire to be in the club. You just have to have a growth mindset and be willing to want more out of life. So I'm going to be teaching. So I want you to take some notes, and if you have family around, call them, tell them, come in the room, let's talk, let's listen to what she has to say, because I'm definitely going to say some financially thought-provoking things that I think are going to help you to get a good, strong financial blueprint so that you can leave the financial legacy that you deserve to leave. So we'll be right back after this. Hey, this is Jewel from the Tankard Show on the Impact Network. Listen, I want to encourage you to take a look at joining the Millionaires Club through jeweltankard.com. I designed this club really with you in mind. We meet twice a month on webinars, and I talk to you about everything financial. Sometimes I'll bring a brand manager on there. Sometimes I'll bring an accountant on there to talk to you about the infrastructure of your business. Are you an LLC, or should you be a corporation S? Should you be a corporation C? Do you have a profit and loss statement? How are you doing on your taxes? Do you have enough write-offs, or is it time to create some more write-offs? We talk to you about real estate investing, purchasing gold and silver bullion. We'll talk to you about oil wells. And you might say, I don't have any money. Listen, the only way to begin to develop and grow money is to talk about it and to learn. You have to stay open to new ideas and concepts. And we talk to you about wealth strategies of the 21st century. So join the club today. Welcome back to the Tankard Show. Yes, right here on the Impact Network, and I'm going to have an opportunity to do what I do all over the country and sometimes out of the country, which is why I started the Millionaires Club, because I wanted to teach people about developing long-term wealth strategy, and particularly women, but I have men now in the club, and so that's pretty exciting. And just talk about, your relationship with money, because so much of our relationship with money dictates our lives, dictates what we can do, what we can't do. And so there are lots of philosophies and ideas that we've all grown up with about money. And so I think the more that we can discuss those things and get us thinking, we can begin to have some thought-provoking masterminding sessions about our money and our finances, so that money can be a slave and not a master to us. So one of the things that I want to talk about first is money, and the fact that what were the things that you saw as a child, as a teen, and as an adult. Okay, so I just wrote that on the screen. Hopefully you guys can see that. But money, growing up, what were some of the things that I saw growing up? So what do I mean by that? Was money something that was scarce? Did you hear, things like, baby, as long as you got a roof over your head, come on somebody, and food on your table, then we're going to be fine. Which that whole thought process came from the whole idea when we were freed as a people, as slaves, and we had the option to leave the plantation, right? But quite a number showed that they didn't want to leave the plantation. So they came up with something called indentured servants. So they were still on the plantation, still working the fields, but the whole mindset was that the master, as long as I'm working his field, then they're going to put a roof over my head and food on my table. And so what happened is from a generation standpoint, from generation to generation, that thought pattern has stayed very consistent with what we see today. So sometimes you hear people say things like, oh, it doesn't take all of that for me. Because you got to understand that because the master, so to speak, was the one that was wealthy, we a lot of times begin to see wealth as something that was negative, because this person that had rulership over our life for that particular season of slavery had wealth. So that meant that obviously if you have wealth, then that means you have to be evil, you have to be mean. So a lot of those ideas still are very pervasive in the way that we think about money and the way we think about wealthy people even today, which also sometimes causes us to say, you know, I don't want that. As an adult, sometimes people still say, well, no, I really don't need all of that because I got to make sure that I keep money far away from me. And even as a child, you may have seen that. As a teenager, you may have seen some of your parents' biggest arguments could have been over money, how the money was going to be spent. So there again, that is creating a groove in your mind about how you think about money. So if you saw mom and dad argue about it as an adult, you're like, listen, I don't care about it. I don't want it because it was the reason maybe that my parents got a divorce. Or, you know, maybe you saw your parents, you know, be excited during the day or during the, you know, payday that everybody was happy. But then, you know, when Monday came or Tuesday came and there was a shortage, again, you saw maybe a grumpy attitude or a bad attitude. So these are all the kinds of conversations that we have to begin to have with ourselves to say, why do I feel this way? And why has it been hard for me maybe to obtain something that is so plentiful? Because the reality is that even during times of recession, like money doesn't leave the earth, doesn't evaporate. Money just simply moves. It transfers. So it's either moving to you or it's moving away from you. But I really want you to think about this because how you view money as a child, how you view money as a teenager, how you view money as an adult will dictate your habits. Now let's go on and talk about those habits. Most of those habits created what I like to call professional consumers. So in our mind, we don't think about wealth accumulation. We think about what can I get, especially if there was scarcity. So I'm going to put right here scarcity. Okay, so in your mind, you could be thinking, oh my gosh, I got to get as much as I can. You know, I want to get the shoes. I want to get the cars. I want to get the house. I want to get whatever I can get because my parents didn't have it, or maybe I didn't have it growing up. So I've got to get as much as I can, not necessarily thinking about what am I getting. Because if I'm going out, and there's no slight against Michael Kors, but the reality is if I go out and I buy Michael Kors, I am simply building his financial legacy. Okay? If I go out and say, oh, I got to go get this designer such and such, because in our minds, we equate designer clothes or shoes, and I'm not against these things, but we equate that to a particular status. Okay? Now, this is where you have to be careful, because unless the designer has your name on it, you are still not building your own financial wealth. Okay? You are building somebody else's financial wealth. And so it could be considered a modern day slavery. So it doesn't look like the slavery that we've all become acquainted with by watching, you know, shows like Roots and things like that. No, not that kind of slavery, but a slave to the fact that I have to buy these shoes or buy this purse or buy these clothes because those things are going to affirm me. But the reality is, you want to affirm yourself by making sure that you are building your financial legacy. And the way that you build your financial legacy is to make sure that you become very, very acquainted with purchasing things called accumulating assets. So you want to ask yourself, okay, if I buy this, what is this going to do for my financial legacy? Okay, so for example, if you got $10,000 right now, let's just say you got $10,000 right now, in your mind right away, how would you spend that $10,000? Would it be spent at the mall? Would it be spent at buying things with other people's names on it? Or will it be spent creating things with your name on it? Because you got to remember, in a will, you can't leave your children Michael Kors shoes. Louis Vuitton bags. I mean, maybe you can, but that's not going to actually help them to develop their own financial destiny. So when you think designer, think about, what am I putting my name on? Okay? What am I doing to make sure that my children understand the value of whatever your name is? So my last name is Tankard, so I think a lot of times, okay, how is this going to help my children and my grandchildren and my great-great-grandchildren? Okay, and me buying more clothes and shoes, and again, nothing wrong with nice clothes and shoes. I'm not against those things, but what I'm saying is that we have to make sure that we do not become a slave, okay, to buying designer items because we equate that with success. So you have to stop and have those conversations. What do I deem successful? You know, sometimes, you know, as parents, we might deal with guilt. So we'll go out and say, I'm going to buy you a bunch of stuff. But is that really what we want to do? Because that sends a message that, you know, if mom or dad feels guilty, I'm going to get whatever I want. Well, the only way we can help control and develop and cultivate healthy desires in our children is to talk to them about their money. Talk to them about their finances. Talk to them about what is a priority and what's not a priority. And so what am I saying? It's important for us as adults to first of all figure out, what was our relationship to money as a child, as a teen, and as an adult? What have I seen consistently from my family? What were some of those things that I saw? Now, I have to take responsibility and say, even though those are things that I saw, I want to create a financial destiny for my family. I'm going to leave you with this, and then we're going to go to break, and I'll be right back. There was an article in Forbes magazine recently, and the article on the front of the page said, is success in the second and third generation, is it genetically, is it DNA? And they had this whole article. It wasn't so much that it was DNA. It didn't have anything to do with the blood of Ralph Lauren or Gucci or Chloe or any of these other moguls. It had everything to do with behavior, what that child was seeing on an ongoing basis. So I want you to stay tuned. We'll be right back after this because we'll talk about next, how do you turn that curve and develop a strong financial destiny? We'll be right back. Hey, this is Jewel from the Jewel Tankard Show on the Impact Network. Listen, I want to encourage you to take a look at joining the Millionaires Club through jeweltankard.com. I designed this club really with you in mind. We meet twice a month on webinars, and I talk to you about everything financial. Sometimes I'll bring a brand manager on there. Sometimes I'll bring an accountant on there to talk to you about the infrastructure of your business. Are you a LLC, or should you be a corporation S? Should you be a corporation C? Do you have a profit and loss statement? How are you doing on your taxes? Do you have enough write-offs, or is it time to create some more write-offs? We talk to you about real estate investing, purchasing gold and silver bullion. We'll talk to you about oil wells. And you might say, I don't have any money. Listen, the only way to begin to develop and grow money is to talk about it and to learn. You have to stay open to new ideas and concepts. And we talk to you about wealth strategies of the 21st century. So join the club today. Welcome back to the Jewel Tankard Show. As I'm discussing new rules of money, old rules of money, and relationship with money that you have, and how what you see growing up impacts, you know, what you think about money today. We were talking before we went to break about how there was an article in Forbes magazine, and they were asking the question, is second and third generation wealth DNA? I mean, is it like in the DNA? So if your children or grandchildren are successful, is it in the DNA? Well, after reading the report, it was clear it was all behavioral. It was all about what you saw, what you heard. Because remember that anything cometh by hearing, not just faith, but anything comes by hearing. If you hear long enough that you're living paycheck to paycheck, or that things are tight. One of the people said in the studio audience that I'll never forget when my parents bought their first house. After they made that purchase, there was a big announcement in the family. Listen, we purchased our first home. Hooray! But don't expect McDonald's for the next couple of months. All those things plant a seed. They plant a seed to say that you can't do more than one thing at one time. If we got a new house, that means everything else gets shut down. And so if you hear that, you end up repeating that behavior. It's just like in a person that's raised in a physically abusive home. If they saw their father beat their mom 9 times out of 10, unfortunately, unless there's some serious intervention in the way that they think about themselves and about men, they'll end up getting with the man that physically abuses them as well. So a lot of what we see is behavioral. Now the good thing is that you can change that behavior at any time. You can learn that it's not me buying this designer item or that designer item that gives me success, but it's about me creating my own design, creating my own financial blueprint. I was talking to someone else and they said, listen, the only thing we talked about in money and the house about money is save, 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 save. Save up for what kind of day? A rainy day. Nobody was talking about invest, invest, invest. Grow your money so you don't have to live off of the principal. You can live off of the interest. So understand that a lot of the ideas that you have about money are not ideas that you came up with. These are ideas that have been placed upon you. For example, I'll give you another example. And I was a single mom before, so this really relates home to me. But I remember, when my ex-husband called one day and he said, I'm not coming back. And I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Okay, because I needed to get out of that crazy relationship anyway. I couldn't even blame him for that. He didn't put a gun in my head and say, you got to stay, even though he was physically abusive sometimes. But ultimately, I stayed, okay, because I was hoping that it would get better, right? So anyway, when he left, I had to make a decision right then that as a single parent, that if I'm trusting God and I'm a tither and I'm diligent, that I'm not going to struggle as a single parent, because most of the behavior that had been put before me was that if you are a single parent, you have to struggle. Well, who said that? Okay? So these are all ideas that we bought into. So as a result, I totally came up against that grain. I said, I'm not struggling as a single parent. I love God. I'm a tither. And I believe that I can have a fabulous life even though I'm a single parent. And do you know I did? Okay? Why? I established a business. I got the right partnerships. I bought a beautiful condo, bought a Lexus, had a nanny. Come on, somebody. Why? Because I set my heart to make sure that I was going to win. That even though the examples that had been put before me were people struggling, people being financially challenged, that it was wearing them out, that I refused to live like that. So my point is that even if you saw a negative behavior as a child growing up, you can make up in your mind, I don't care what I saw, I am not repeating that. Okay? So you just have to make that decision. Now, let's talk a little bit. And I mentioned to you earlier, because I wanted to know, what do you think about your money? What is your relationship with money? Are you a consumer? Are you thinking, oh, we didn't have growing up, so I got to make sure that I get a lot? Okay, so let's talk about what we should be thinking about and what should we be talking to our children about. And that's, I think, number one, first of all, is that you have to have a mindset to accumulate assets. What are assets? Land, buildings, commercial, residential, duplexes, single family flats, apartment buildings. You can lease land out. Somebody, Home Depot could come and say, we want to put a Home Depot on this land. And you can say, I'm not going to sell it to you, but I'll lease it to you for the next 50 years. And you can put that in your will to your children. So if you die, you're still going to be getting monthly income from Home Depot leasing your land that you bought. Same thing with apartment buildings, duplexes. These are what we would call assets. So you want to become asset-minded. All right? Asset-minded. Now, the other thing you want to think about is don't just think short-term. Most people just go to work, come home, on Friday they get paid, and then they pay all their bills. And they do the same thing week after week. Talk to yourself and your children, what is the financial blueprint for this family in the next 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years? What are some things that we can put in place? Actually, you could put in place Exactly. You know, if you sit down with an attorney, you sit down with a living trust, did you know you can put in place that in order for your children to get different royalties and passive income, residual income that you've set up, that they have to fulfill 20 years of maybe working in the business. 20 hours of working in the business, or 10 hours, or 5 hours, or whatever you want to come up with. Or they got to take care of their grandma, or they got to take care of their aunt, or they have to maintain whatever. They have to stay drug-free. Like, you can specifically put what you want your children to continue in. Now, the key is while your children are alive, that you are talking, you're alive, you're talking to them about what are some of these goals. So in the next 5 years, my husband always does something in his book, The Full Tank Life. He says, I want to know, what are your goals for the next 5 hours, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, come on, 50 years. What do you want that to look like? You have to first create in your imagination what that looks like. Then you can write down those action steps, that daily activity that it's going to take for you to get there. Because if you just think about 6 months saving for a rainy day, that's all that's ever going to come is a rainy day. But if you think about, I want to create a plan that in the next 5 years to make sure that at least 5 people in our family are millionaires, or that I become a millionaire, or that my child becomes a millionaire, or, you know, whatever those goals are, you make those goals. But you have to stop and plan that out. Because if you just live, because most of us, the relationship with money was rainy day, 6 month savings. And that's why we have a hard time going beyond that, which is why when we go to work and we get a job, and they say, we want you to meet with human resources. You go into human resources and they say, fill out this form. We'll email it to you, okay? And this is going to allow you to get a 401k. And we're going to match it. You just do it because it's the only thing you've ever heard about. But you'd never stop to think, how many people do you know became wealthy off of a 401k? Right? No, I don't know nobody. Okay? That doesn't happen that way. So, but you just do it because it's the only thing you've seen. So what am I saying? Is that I want you to stop, and it's not just about listening to everything that I have to say, because these are, at the end of the day, just my opinions, okay? But I want you to learn how to think for yourself. Why am I doing this? Why do I think this way? Why do I only think about 6 months for a rainy day? Why am I not thinking about creating a financial destiny? Why am I not thinking about accumulating assets so that I can put me and my family in a position so that we don't ever have to want for another day in our life, that we don't have to live check to check? How do I break that cycle? And then you look at your relationships with your friends, and I promise you, probably you and all your friends make within 10% of one another. Okay? Because what happens is when you get ready to go to the next level, you have to do something called stretch. So that means you have to set a financial stretch goal. And you can't say, well, I'm waiting for my husband to do that. You got to make your own financial stretch goal. You can't say, well, I'm waiting for my child to do that. No, you need to make a financial stretch goal. Okay? In your giving, in your receiving, and in your living. 3 areas: in your giving, in your receiving, and in your living, so that your quality of life goes up every single year. You are responsible for your quality of life, not the administration of this country. You are, okay? All right, we're going to be right back after this.
This is your place of influence and change,
hope and faith.
Your place of daily transformation.
The hour is now to shine our light.
Together, let's grow. Find hope and elevate your faith. Reveal and step into your purpose. Impact your world today. This is your moment. This is your Impact Network.
Hey, welcome back to the Tankard Show. Listen, I have been having a ball talk to you about your relationship with money, why you think the way you think about money, and has it been something you've always had to struggle for all your life, like straining, or is it something that's come to you freely? And ultimately, I want money to be something that is like so easy, that it just comes to you so effortlessly. But we are now going into the social media part. We actually opened this up for some of our followers to ask questions about what they thought about money. Some of their money questions on here. So from Jacqueline Turner, she said, what's the hardest lesson you've learned, or what would you do differently concerning saving, investing, or portfolio building? And I can tell you this right now. First of all, I would have, and I started saving and investing probably right around 19 years old. That's when there was a big wake-up call for me, growing up in a family who actually did have a lot of money, and then, you know, at 19, lost everything. It was devastating. But, you know, a lot of times your pain can become your passion. And when I realized that, you know, mom and dad were, they're amazing entrepreneurs even today, but nobody sat them down and talked to them about investing and growing their money. So I would have become more aggressive, you know, even at that age of 19, even though I did start saving, even though I did start investing, I would have become more aggressive, and I would not have looked, you know, because I spent a couple years after daddy being, you know, taking such good care of us all those years, then I started dating drug dealers trying to recreate that same lifestyle. So I would have went right into making sure that I financially educated myself and not needing to rely on somebody else to create the lifestyle that I knew I deserved to live. So that's my answer to that. And then, of course, connect with people that have way more than you financially, and then listen to what they have to say. All right. Somebody said, where should I put my money? In a credit union or the bank? Well, a credit union is your money's gonna be a little bit more protected. If we ever had a state of the emergency, they may actually shut down the bank where no money can go in or no money can come out. We actually saw that happen over a year ago in the beautiful country of Greece, where the ATM machines were shut down, or you could only get like $100 a day. The banks were shut down. There were long, long lines when the banks did open. So a credit union's always gonna protect your money a little bit more. And, you know, of course, you always need to keep cash on hand. Don't keep everything in an institution that unless you get there and unless they're open, you can't get your hand on the money. Okay, somebody said, Sandra Tefford said, what would you tell a wife and a mother to do in order to tap into this wealth transfer? Both her and her spouse are currently entrepreneurs and under financial strain. I would tell a wife and a mother to get a financial mentor because it's no fun being an entrepreneur or an employee and always having to struggle and scratch for money. Get a financial mentor, because many times if you get that financial mentor, they can eliminate a lot of the struggle and the strain that has happened in money. And I like what you said. What would you tell a wife and a mother? Don't depend on everything to come from your husband. You have a brain, use it, you know, and get with people that have your answer. Don't talk to a bunch of broke girlfriends that, you know, are all struggling and mad and that kind of thing. Get with somebody that has your answer. I would definitely tell you that. So listen, the whole point of me doing this whole section today on money, it's just because I want you guys to start to think. Again, these are my opinions. You might agree or disagree. I really don't care. But what I do want you to do is I want you to start thinking. Think for yourself. Ask questions, and ask questions to the right people. Ask questions to the people that you respect, that you admire, that you want to become, you know, that you would like to become like, you know. So make sure that you connect with the right people. Don't be afraid to ask the questions, and don't just sit back and wait on an administration to solve all your problems. You are the best one that could solve your financial problems. So remember, until next time, you can have